I thought my fiancé Arthur loved me, but ever since his first love Mia returned, he loathed me and my cats. One stormy night I was kidnapped. Little did I know when my body parts were found. He'd be clueless it was me, still hating me even in death. Since the young woman's fiancé, Arthur Hastings, reunited with his first love, Mia Thompson, he has forbidden her from keeping a cat. His disgust for both the cats and her seemed to grow with each passing day. One stormy night the young woman was found bound and gagged in an abandoned building on the town's outskirts. The kidnapper forced her to call Arthur, and her voice trembled as she said, "Arthur, Cookie's cat food is almost out. Please hurry and buy a bag from the alley on South Street." On the other end of the line, Arthur's face turned red with anger. He didn't even pause to notice the unease in her voice. Instead he yelled hysterically, his hands flailing in the air, "How many times have I told you not to keep cats? Mia is allergic to furry things. Don't you know why she was hospitalized? Why don't you have any sympathy?" A soft, delicate voice could be faintly heard in the background on Arthur's end. Before she could get another word out, the call was abruptly ended. The next day, bags emblazoned with the words, "Slaughterhouse," began appearing in trash cans across the city. One such bag was left right at the entrance of the police station. Arthur was urgently summoned back. For 3 long days and nights, he labored over the gruesome task of piecing together the body parts. His brow was furrowed in concentration, and he didn't have a clue that it was his fiancée, the woman he'd known since childhood. When Arthur finally arrived at the police station, there were still a few colorful ribbons wrapped around his body, remnants of some recent event. He asked, his voice serious, "When was it discovered?" A police officer replied, "The sanitation worker found the first bag in the trash can at our station's entrance. He thought it was pork, and planned to take it home. Then he realized something was off, and brought it here." Arthur's face darkened. "This is a direct challenge to the law," he declared. In addition to the bag at the police station, a dozen more bags of different sizes were soon discovered and brought in. Arthur frowned deeply. It was a major case unlike anything the city had ever seen. The perpetrator's methods were incredibly ruthless. "The damage is severe, piecing it together will be a real challenge," he murmured. News of the incident spread like wildfire through Butterworth. City officials were enraged, their faces flushed with anger, and they demanded a swift resolution to the case. Caleb, with a solemn expression, relayed their message to the team. One with a heavy sigh, the speaker said, "The whole city is aware of your capabilities, Arthur. The team has managed to secure 72 hours for you, hoping for a swift result. Your wedding with Claire is just around the corner, and we're intruding on your leave. I apologize for the inconvenience." At the mention of his name, Arthur's eyes instantly filled with disgust and contempt. His lips curled slightly as he spat out, "Here is no way. I am marrying Claire Evans. Don't ever bring her name up again." Floating nearby, Claire's heart seemed to ache, her spectral form wavered a bit, and her transparent eyes were filled with a deep sadness. She had never imagined that she could still feel such pain after death. Ever since his first love Mia had returned, Arthur had changed. He grew increasingly distant and cold towards her. When Mia was hospitalized, his disgust for Claire intensified. He lost all enthusiasm for their wedding preparations. He even took an unprecedented leave of absence, staying at the hospital day and night, eating and sleeping there to care for Maya. When Claire was kidnapped, she received a breakup text from him, and when her body was found, he was celebrating Mia's discharge from the hospital. He didn't even have the courage to break up with her Two-Face, as if he was discarding their childhood friendship, along with their relationship. If he knew that the body he was about to piece together was hers, that it was her that interrupted his celebration for Mia, he would despise her even more. Caleb was momentarily stunned, his eyes widened slightly, and then he let out a soft chuckle. "We've all been through similar situations. Any misunderstandings can be cleared up through a good conversation," he said, trying to sound reassuring. Arthur scowled and replied, "It's my fault for not seeing through her. She's manipulative and scheming, nothing like what she appears to be." When Arthur mentioned Claire, the anger and disgust in his eyes were palpable. His fists clenched tightly at his sides. Before Caleb could say another word, Arthur had already turned on his heel and strode into the forensic lab. His long strides and the determined set of his shoulders showed his eagerness to get to work. Although 72 hours might not be a challenge for Arthur, as he started to piece together the clues, his frown deepened. His eyes were fixed intently on the corpse. Both ring fingers were missing and the remaining fingers had no usable fingerprints. Arthur let out a deep sigh as he looked at the body. The victim was approximately 23 to 28 years old, female. There are multiple sharp force injuries throughout the body, he said in a solemn voice. Tone, the forensic expert reported. There are about 108 minor wounds, and the fatal ones were 2 severe blows to the heart. Of all the body parts collected, 2 ring fingers are missing. The remaining fingers have residual highly corrosive liquid, making fingerprint identification. Caleb, his brows tightly furrowed, his face filled with indignation, exclaimed, "This is absolutely inhumane. Such brutality. I swear I'll bring them to justice myself." Arthur, his face showing signs of extreme exhaustion, added in a solemn tone, "The method of killing is similar to ancient torture. Based on the condition of the wounds, it can be inferred that the perpetrator acted while the victim was conscious. It's equivalent to being flayed alive." Upon hearing Arthur's words, Caleb's eyes widened with shock and determination. He immediately rushed out of the forensic lab, his steps forceful. He ordered the officers, his voice booming, "Intensify the search, and don't let any suspect go quickly." Such a dehumanizing method, combined with the knowledge of how to delay police investigation, suggested that the perpetrator likely had a criminal record. The method even bore a striking resemblance to a case in Butterworth 20 years ago. It was evident that Arthur was a professional in this regard. Time passed from day to night, and the victim's state went from struggling to despair. A rag was stuffed in the victim's mouth, and wounds were continuously carved into the body. The pain was overwhelming as the perpetrator wielded a craft knife, moving it across the body like a sculptor working on a piece of material. With each cut, the perpetrator sprayed chili water on it, causing the victim to writhe in agony on the ground, hands clenching the floor tightly. To delay the police, the perpetrator put the victim's hands into a smoking liquid. The intense burning sensation made the victim's body convulse violently. But the perpetrator wasn't satisfied. She ordered someone to splash the victim with cold water. The cold water hit the victim's body, and the victim's eyes opened wide in pain. Then, continued to be tortured in different ways. Despite the pain, the victim still stared at the perpetrator intently, eyes filled with hatred. The perpetrator then ordered someone to strike the victim's heart with a stone hammer, laughing eerily. Only when she found that the victim was motionless and no longer breathing did she stop. She then placed the victim on a rolling operating table. The victim was in excruciating pain, body twitching slightly. Back in the forensic lab, Arthur frowned and picked up the victim's hand to examine it closely. The victim's heart skipped a beat. A look of uneasiness flashed across the victim's face. Did Arthur recognize it? On the day of her 18th birthday, he gave her a bracelet. Gently, he picked up the bracelet and placed it on her wrist. The bracelet bore the engraved initials of both of them. However, upon seeing it, her heart seemed to plummet. Her eyes widened slightly, and a hint of despair flashed across her face. How could he possibly recognize it? That bracelet had been forcefully torn off long ago. She could still recall the woman saying she didn't deserve it. Now, looking at her wrists, aside from the prominent cuts, there was nothing else visible. The shock of the bracelet incident drove Arthur to the archives. He walked purposefully into the archive room, his brows furrowed in determination. Among the shelves filled with numerous case files, he skillfully rummaged through them, his fingers deftly flipping through the folders. Finally, he found the file from 20 years ago, the Butterworth 816 case. The details in the file unfolded before his eyes. A month after the incident, the previous group of perpetrators had been caught red-handed. And her parents, their sacrifice was a tragic story. When their teammates reached the scene, her parents were lying in a pool of blood. Their bodies were marked with countless minor cuts, fatal wounds, and the signs of blunt force trauma. After that fateful event, she was taken to Arthur's house. In those early days, Arthur was like a big brother to her. He would sit beside her, his hand gently patting her shoulder to comfort her. He even gave her his most beloved toy, a warm smile on his face as he placed it in her hands. But, as time went on, Arthur's father, Oscar Hastings, passed away. The two of them were left to rely on each other. One time, when she fell ill with the high fever, and mumbled incoherently in her dreams, calling out for her parents, Arthur stayed by her bedside, day and night. His eyes were filled with concern as he wiped the sweat from her forehead and adjusted the covers. Then Mia, Arthur's first love, appeared on the scene. Arthur began to distance himself from her. His greetings became more perfunctory, and he would often turn away when she tried to talk to him. And when Mia moved in, the situation took a turn for the worse. As soon as Mia entered the house, she had an asthma attack. Arthur's face immediately darkened. He pointed at her and the cat, his voice filled with anger. She stood there, her eyes wide in disbelief, unable to understand how 20 years of affection and trust could shatter in an instant because of someone he had just met. He questioned her, his voice raised, demanding to know why she had treated Mia that way. She tried to explain, her hands gesturing wildly, but he just shook his head, his lips tightly pursed. He was convinced that she was the cause of Mia's relapse. They had originally planned to get married at the end of the year, but after that incident he never mentioned it again. The last time they spoke was when she was trying on wedding dresses. She stood in front of the mirror, the wedding dress flowing around her, her eyes filled with hope, but his voice on the phone was cold. "I am too busy to come," he said now in a different setting. Arthur stood with a serious expression on his face. His eyes were fixed on a suspect, and with a firm tone he said, "Check under her fingernails for DNA." 1. The detective placed his fingers into a bag and sent them to the lab. There was a look of hesitation on his face, as if he wanted to say something. He opened his mouth slightly, as if he was about to utter, "There is, I left some behind." But the figure that haunted him stood there, watching helplessly as he just walked through her form time and time again, no matter how many times she tried to intercept him. She drifted in mid-air, her shoulders slumped, and tears welled up in her eyes, streaming down her cheeks once more. It was evident that even in death the feeling of sadness was still so palpable that it could bring forth tears. Meanwhile, at the police station, the chief officer issued instructions: keep a close eye on recent missing persons reports, especially those cases involving young women. He then added, "The blood samples have been sent to the city. Our equipment here is slow, but the results should be back in 2 days. Let Caleb know when he gets back. I have other matters to attend to. Gotta go." With that, Arthur, the dedicated police officer, quickly took off his uniform, and with a determined stride he rushed out into the pouring rain, his steps leading him straight towards the hospital. Just as Arthur was about to leave, an elderly voice called out from behind, "Arthur, has Claire been by to see you? Cookies, running out of cat food. And she usually brings some over," Amanda Morris said, with a look of mild concern knitting her brows. It was well known that since Arthur didn't allow keeping a cat at home, the owner of this ghostly figure had been keeping Cookie at Amanda's place. Every week like clockwork, she would make sure to deliver cat food to Amanda on time. At the mention of Claire's name, Arthur's face darkened visibly, his jaw tightened and he averted his gaze, answering, "I don't know. She hasn't come to find me." Amanda, a retired police officer who lived in the police station dormitory, had watched Arthur and the girl grow up in the neighborhood. She was like family to them. Seeing Arthur's evasive demeanor, she offered a suggestion. Leaning forward slightly with a gentle tone, she said, "Arthur, are you two having a fight? Claire usually answers her phone, and Cookie is her baby. Maybe you should give her a call and ask." On the other end of the phone, Cookie seemed to sense the strange atmosphere and let out a soft meow. Arthur's already displeased expression grew even more sour. His hands clenched into fists, but he managed to control his temper. Because it was Amanda calling. Speaking slowly and calmly, he said, "Claire and I have broken up. I don't want to hear anything about her anymore." Amanda, remembering the name mentioned once by the girl, probed further. Was it because of Mia Bell? Arthur's face turned ashen, his expression turning almost menacing. "What did Claire tell you?" he barked. Then, taking a deep breath, he composed himself a bit and said, "Forget it. It doesn't matter what she said anymore, Amanda." He hurriedly said, "I have something to attend to, goodbye," and then abruptly hung up the phone, rushing towards the nearby flower shop. Once inside, he meticulously selected a bouquet of flowers that were exceptionally bright and beautiful. Leaning over the counter, he gestured animatedly to the clerk, his eyes filled with eagerness, as if he were commissioning a masterpiece, instructing the clerk to wrap it like a work of art. Floating silently beside him, one could see a rare smile spreading across his face. His cheeks were slightly flushed, and his lips curled up in pure happiness, a smile that was identical to the one he had worn on the night he proposed. He entered the hospital room, the pungent smell of disinfectant stinging his nostrils. He gently placed the bouquet of flowers beside the bed. Mia, upon seeing him arrive, coughed twice, her hand clutched at the bedsheets, and her complexion, already pale, grew even whiter. "I can take care of myself. Have you finished all your work?" she asked, her voice weak. As she spoke, she quickly covered her face with her hand, her body convulsing with a violent cough. Arthur stepped closer to the bed. With a gentle motion he reached out and brushed away the stray hairs from Mia's forehead. His eyes were soft, filled with concern, and he said in a soft, soothing voice, "How could I leave you like this?" As soon as I finished, I rushed here. Mia's eyes, which were half closed, suddenly opened wider. "Have they caught the serial killer?" she asked. Arthur frowned, his eyebrows knitting together in confusion. How did you know? He questioned. A flash of panic crossed Mia's eyes. They widened slightly, and her pupils dilated. But then, she quickly composed herself. Her hand that had been clutching the sheets relaxed a bit, and she said, "It's all around. The cleaning lady mentioned it to me today." Indeed, the news of the serial killer had already spread far and wide throughout the city. Did they catch the killer? Mia persisted, her voice a bit more insistent. Arthur gave her a teasing look. Are you that curious? He asked. Mamia's fingers tapped lightly on the bedsheet. After all, it's such a big case. I'm a bit scared too. Just hoping the police will catch the killer soon, she replied. Arthur chuckled, and with a tender gesture he ruffled Mia's hair. Your main task is to focus on getting better, he said. In the past, whenever I had felt unwell, Arthur would comfort me with the very same tenderness. I stared intently at Mia, while Arthur remained completely oblivious to the true nature of the woman in front of him. Mia obediently closed her eyes and lay back on the pillow, her breathing shallow. Just then, Arthur's phone began to ring. He glanced at the screen, and saw that it was a call from the station. He gave Mia a reassuring smile, then stepped outside the hospital room. Arthur, your cake has been delivered. Is it your birthday today? One of the officers at the station asked, a hint of playfulness in his voice. It was addressed to dear Mr. Hastings, another officer added, and they all began to tease him. Could it be from Claire? At this, Arthur's face turned ashen, his lips tightened, and his hands that were holding the phone started to shake slightly. Today isn't my birthday. You guys go ahead and eat it, he said, his voice cold and distant. As the phone call ended, he pressed his lips tightly together, muttering softly, I hate cream. She knows that. His brow furrowed, and he shook his head gently. I hate cream, she knows that. Without a moment's delay, he quickly dialed the number, his fingers dancing impatiently over the keypad. But as he held the phone to his ear, his brows furrowed deeper upon hearing the persistent busy signal, with no sign of response. Frustration visibly etched across his face, his jaw tightened, and he tried 3 more times. Each time he stared at the phone screen with growing exasperation, still unable to get through. Over in another place, a group of people had taken the phone away from the protagonist. At first, there were scheming glints in their eyes as they planned to use the person to extort some money. But after that last call, they exchanged glances of disappointment. They noticed how few contacts were in the phone, and one of them, his shoulders slumping, waved a hand, and the idea was abandoned. Then, one of them eagerly picked up the phone and switched on the camera, his eyes gleaming as he pointed it around, recording everything. Back where Arthur was, his pacing grew more and more agitated, a clear sign that his patience was wearing thin. He knew that, even when they argued, there was no way the other person would ignore his calls, let alone not respond after so many tries. With a huff, he opened WhatsApp and started sending voice messages, his voice rising in annoyance. His face was red with anger as he spoke. Claire, stop bugging me, can't we just let each other go? He hesitated for a moment, then continued, his voice laced with irritation. Also, your cat is nearly starving. If you can really be so heartless, then, even if it dies, I won't help you deal with it. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Don't think that hiding will make me soften and forgive you. As long as Maya isn't well, I won't forgive you. On the other side, the protagonist's face blanched, her eyes widening in pain as if needles were actually piercing her heart. She trembled so violently that her whole body shook, and her hands clenched into tight fists by her sides. Meanwhile, Arthur was so engrossed in venting his dissatisfaction on WhatsApp that he failed to notice Mia. Mia, with a strange and unexpected fierce and sinister look in her eyes, slowly climbed off the bed, as if nothing was amiss. Just then, Arthur's phone rang. It was Caleb, and his excited voice came through the speaker. Arthur, where are you? Here is a major discovery, hurry back.